Boris Johnson led the Conservatives to their largest election victory since 1987. The Prime Minister is all set to quit after losing the confidence of his MPs. As he announced his retirement as the leader of the Conservative Party, Boris Johnson stated it is sad not to be able to see through so many projects and ideas. So how did this happen? To know more, stay tuned till the end of the video. Firstly, we will see what might be the reasons for the PM's resignation. The MP Chris Pincher visited a private members club in London on Wednesday, June 29. He said he drank way too much and embarrassed himself. He was alleged of groping two guys, which sparked a wave of allegations, some of which were made years earlier. Furthermore, it sparked a series of actions that led to the Prime Minister's resignation. First, Downing Street claimed that when Mr. Johnson named Mr. Pincher as Deputy Chief Whip in February, he was unaware of any particular charges against him. Later, even though this claim was proved false, ministers reiterated it. According to a BBC report on July 4, Mr. Johnson knew about a written complaint. The following day, Lord MacDonald, a former civil servant, claimed that the Prime Minister had received a personal notification of the complaint. Then Mr. Johnson accepted being informed in 2019 and expressed regret for selecting Mr. Pincher to serve as Deputy Chief Whip. A House of Commons committee demanded Owen Paterson, a Conservative MP at the time, be suspended for 30 days in October 2021. He violated lobbying laws to help the firms that paid him, but the government's Conservatives, led by the Prime Minister, decided to halt his suspension and form a new committee to examine the procedures followed during probes. Following a backlash, Mr. Johnson later said he had crashed a car in his involvement in the case. Boris Johnson's resounding victory was based on a straightforward, simple-to-implement policy. But since then, his detractors have been complaining that Downing Street has lacked direction and inspiration. Dominic Cummings, his former advisor and now his worst opponent, frequently compared him to an out-of-control shopping cart drifting from one position to another. Others questioned whether the Prime Minister even had a philosophy. Former Minister and Conservative MP Jeremy Hunt complained that Mr. Johnson lacked ethics, competence, and vision. Before a motion of confidence, which Mr. Johnson won, the criticisms were becoming louder as Mr. Hunt spoke. Boris Johnson received a fine in April for breaking the rules set for the lockdown after going to an event on his birthday in June 2020. Additionally, he expressed regret for attending a bring-your-own-booze gathering in the Downing Street Garden during the initial lockdown. In total, 126 persons received fines from the Metropolitan Police for violating the lockdown regulations in Downing Street and Whitehall. A report by Sue Gray also detailed several social parties hosted by political staff members that violated lockdown regulations. The senior leadership at the center, both political and official, must bear responsibility for this culture, she wrote. In December, Mr. Johnson informed the Commons that all guidance was followed completely in number 10. A Commons committee was trying to find out whether he intentionally deceived the legislature. 2022 witnessed a huge increase in inflation, which is now 9.1%. There were numerous factors that Boris Johnson had no control over. For instance, the invasion of Russia in Ukraine has increased the price of food and oil. The government also increased taxes in April, even though it had already taken some actions, such as decreasing gasoline duty by £5 per litre. The price of national insurance increased by 1.25 pence per pound. These changes lessened the impact of the tax increase, which the government claimed would pay for health and social care. But those making more than £34,000 a year will still pay extra. Quote, "In the middle of the worst cost of living crisis for decades," said Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer in April. The government chooses to increase taxes on working people. End quote. Now that we are done discussing the reasons for Johnson's resignation, let's look at his resignation speech. As the PM delivered his resignation statement outside Number 10, members of his family and the staff applauded him. He declared that he planned to continue serving until his replacement was selected. He stated that the schedule for a leadership competition would be revealed the following week. The victor of that competition will take over as Prime Minister of the UK. However, Sir John Major, a former Conservative Prime Minister, and others had urged Mr. Johnson to vacate Number 10 immediately. Sir John wrote to party leaders urging them to hurry up the leadership election, or in the event of a tie, designate Prime Minister Dominic Raab as acting PM. Following the abrupt resignations of Health Secretary Sajid Javid and Chancellor Rishi Sunak, Mr. Johnson's resignation resulted from a widespread revolt among ministers against his leadership. For 48 hours, he rejected calls to resign, including those from newly appointed Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi, when it became clear that he had lost his party support and could no longer go on. Speaking outside Downing Street, he claimed to have won the greatest Conservative majority since 1987 and an amazing mandate in the 2019 general election. The reason I have fought so hard in the last few days to continue to deliver that mandate in person was not just because I wanted to do so, because I felt it was my job, my duty, my obligation to you to do what we promised in 2019. I regret to not have been successful in those arguments, he said, but admitted that his party's will was obvious. In politics, no one is remotely indispensable, he said, adding, I want you to know how sad I am to be giving up the best job in the world, but them's the breaks, end quote. The UK's exit from the EU, the government's response to COVID, and the implementation of the immunization program were among the accomplishments he listed during his time in power. He further added that he had led the West in standing up to Putin's aggression in Ukraine. While talking about the people in Ukraine, he said, "We in the UK will continue to back your fight for freedom for as long as it takes." End quote. President Volodymyr Zelensky was all praises for Mr. Johnson for realizing the threat of Russian Federation monster and always being at the forefront of supporting Ukraine. Mr. Johnson praised his wife Carrie, their kids, the Downing Street staff, and, quote, you, the British people, for the immense privilege you have given me. I know even if things can sometimes seem dark now, our future together is golden, he further said. Until a new leader was chosen, he said that he and his government would act in the nation's best interests. He has filled open positions in his cabinet, which will convene later. However, he still has difficulty replacing the slew of more junior ministers who left their positions to compel his resignation from many departments. After assuming office in July 2019, Mr. Johnson won a general election with a sizable majority 6 months later. But in recent months, he has been beset by scandal, including paying a fine for violating his lockdown regulations and how he handled claims of sexual misconduct against the former Deputy Chief Whip Chris Pincher. The PM's remarks were brief, but he won't necessarily leave the office right away. He wanted history to record that his co-workers, not him, caused his resignation. Even though he won the 2019 general election with the largest majority since 1987 and gained new supporters for his party, the herd, as he described it, had moved rapidly. The implication is that without him to hold it together, the coalition of voters he put together in 2019, including erstwhile Labour backers, may disintegrate. He mentioned the recent negative news, but he spent little time discussing any of the faults he might have made while in office that led to widespread resignations and a motion of no confidence. He merely said that he had failed to persuade his co-workers that he should keep his position. He will remain in office until a new leader is chosen, but the Backbench 1922 committee will determine the timeline. Some MPs want it to be accelerated so that he won't be in that position until the fall. He doesn't appear to be in a rush to resign because there are new cabinet ministers in place. He'll want to leave behind a legacy that isn't marred by the recent chaos. To replace the outgoing leader, the Conservative Party will immediately organize a leadership election. Suella Braverman, the Attorney General, is the sole Conservative MP to date to announce her intention to run, although Steve Baker has stated he is seriously thinking about it. More candidates are anticipated to join them in the upcoming days. However, Dominic Raab, the Deputy Prime Minister, has withdrawn his name. So, that's pretty much of it. Don't forget to check out more interesting content on our channel. See you in our next video. Till then, take care.